you for joining us in another episode of the Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast. And today I have a very special guest from Arizona. His name is Dave Panazzo.
There you go. You nailed it.
Instructed me to say it that way. So, Dave, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me come on today.
Yeah, of course. Today, I want to get into a lot of things, but first, I really want you to introduce yourself to our guests. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the real estate business.
Very loaded question, so I'm going to unpack it.
Great.
Okay. Um, born in Indiana, Midwestern guy, right? And, I wanted I always wanted more in life. And, I traditionally, my family wanted me to go to college and do the traditional thing. Okay. I'm an old guy. So, that was back then when college was like, oh, you got to go to college, got to go to college. Tried college. Guess what? Didn't work. So I dropped out. Didn't even tell my parents. And then one day they got a notice and they're like, have you been going to school? And I'm like, no, as a matter of fact, no, I'm not. Went on kind of a, I don't know, wild run there for a minute. And I got to the point to where I knew I had to do something positive in my life. So I joined the military. Went in the military, got shipped overseas to Germany, which was I was able to see Europe and stuff as a young person, and ended up running into this girl from Minnesota. She was in the Air Force. One thing led to another. We got married, and that happened in 1991. We jumped around to a couple different places, but we ended up out in Arizona because as a kid growing up, I always wanted to be out west, like Brady Bunch and, California and all that, but ended up settling for Arizona, which is amazing. As a family growing up, we never came out west. We always went to Florida, Florida, Florida. Well, the West is a completely different vibe. So came out here in 1994, haven't looked back since. And, I've had all sorts of different sales jobs, and I got into sales in 1993. So I've been talking to people for a very long time. And I got in the car business. So I'm in the car business at the time. And my wife was kind of getting sick and tired of the accounting world. And she decided to get her real estate license in 2002. And so the market back then wasn't anything crazy. And she was doing pretty decent as a solo agent and getting her jam going and whatnot. And I'm in the car business. Well, people that are in the car business know like the money is there and it's really, really hard to walk away from the car business because you're like, what else am I going to do to make 10, 20, 30 grand a month? And so I ended up getting out of the car business and reinventing myself. Well, by that time, she had been in the market for a while, went through 2008, complete storm of chaos. Okay, for those that participated during that crazy time. And in 2016, going through a lot of ups and downs through life, finally decided to get my real estate license. And she's like, "Oh, what a great idea, honey." I'm like, stop it. Okay, this was my idea. It was always your idea, but now that it's my idea, it makes more sense. And so in 2016, I decided to get my license, and her and I finally started working together. And the rest is history. So there's been a lot of craziness and ups and downs and everything, with not only marriage, but real estate and just having that front row seat to watching her as a solo agent for 14 years. I totally have the makeup of what a realtor goes through. So it makes my job easier as a leader now when some of our teammates and stuff come up to me, oh, I got this problem. And I'm like, hey, listen, relax. Like, no one's going to die, are they? They're like, well, no. Like, oh, you don't have any problems. So I'm able to kind of lead in a different way that maybe a typical leader may lead just because of what I've seen through experience over the years. So I've had somewhat of a case study going on.
I'll tell you what, I absolutely adore that story. I think that I always love a good love story. So I really appreciate what you guys went through and getting to where you're at today, especially going through that during COVID. I cannot imagine. So my first question really is just I mean, how did you get through that together and who kind of does what? Like, do you guys have specific roles that you do, or you just kind of like, hey, we got to get this done, we're gonna get it done?
Yeah, COVID was a very interesting time because, again, the world did stop for a hot second. Okay. Now, we were a little fortunate being out in Arizona, Wild West,
Hmm.
not as restricted, but I would say for the first 30, 60 days, we were kind of like in that, oh man, what's going to happen? Okay. And then all of a sudden, it was like a light switch just went boom. We had the most amazing year ever. And I joke to this very day, I wouldn't mind going back to those days. Feel like, oh my God, no way.
It was kind of
Because
fun.
when I hear because when I hear agents to this very day when I'm interviewing agents, and I'm like, oh, so how long you been an agent? They're like, oh, 5, 6, 7 years. But COVID really hurt my business. That's a red flag. Okay. That red flag goes bam.
Yep.
Because for us, we embraced it. Okay. We took the chaos, we took all that and flipped it and made the best of it what we could. Okay. And so back then it was like a fire drill every single day. And we ran like that for a really long time. And until the rates started to creep back up, that's when the brakes were put on.
For sure. It was all fun and games until it wasn't. So,
Yep.
I completely, agree with how you're feeling. It was just like sometimes it is fun to think about going back to that where it was kind of just, you're on your own, doing your own thing at home together. So with that said, do you separate your business and personal life, or is there no real distinction? And what are some of your major disagreements that you guys have had, and how did you resolve them?
Yeah, right off the bat, like we took a proactive approach. We paid for advice. Like we weren't going to white knuckle this thing because number one, we wanted to stay married. Okay. Number two, we wanted to run a successful business. So sometimes when you don't know, you kind of wing it, right? Well, we wanted to do it the right way starting to build that right foundation. Okay. And so by building that foundation, we learned a lot about, the strengths and weaknesses each of us had. So, like in a marriage, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. Okay. You got to go all in on both sides. And so that's how we did it with our real estate business. There were certain things she was really good with and certain things I was really good with. Not one of those like, oh, well, why can't you be like me and that kind of stuff because that creates tension, that creates fights and that's not good to do in a marriage, let alone in a business partnership and marriage. It's a double-edged sword. So we really wanted to break down our strengths and weaknesses and left it at that. So what happened was she had her top 10 list, I had mine. So what happened was, we had that synergy that when sometimes things would cross over, that's where the explosion would happen in terms of the growth factor. Okay. And so I'm very, very a huge fan of if there's anyone out there listening that is literally working with their spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, you guys have to break this down like a true business. It's not a little mom and pop thing going on. You got to break it down and really have that tough conversation as to what are you good at? What am I good at? How are we going to work this together? And ever since then, we've been off and running, not looking back.
That's amazing. And what I'm kind of hearing from you is that you just took a leadership approach, even though it was just the two of you. So, diving into leadership, what is your leadership style? How has it changed since you first started, to now? And how did you guys get to the point where you're like, we want to grow a team?
It was from day one when I said, "Hey, I'm getting my li-" When I told her, I go, "Hey, I just want to let you know, I pulled the trigger. I signed up for real estate school for April 1st. It was April 1st, 2016. I said, "Listen, I'm getting my license. Here's what's going to go on. We're going to have this and we're going to have that." And she's like, "Slow your roll. Go get your license, and then we'll talk more." So, but we always had the intention of wanting to build a team. And so building that right foundation, it took a couple years to figure that out because what happens is that you drag kind of like your sales guy stuff with you, right? And then you apply it to the so-called team. Well, there's infrastructure, there's things that that you need to set up. A lot of that was done as we went down that road. We're pro I was joking with one of our agent partners who's been with us almost close to 4 years, and I go, "How many different versions of Dave have you seen?" She goes, "Oh, geez." She goes, "At least four or five." So I'm in probably version 7.0 of Dave Panazzo because as a leader, you have to also be growing as well along with your team. And if you're not growing as a leader and you're not doing self-development and you're not out there trying to get yourself better, guess what? Your business isn't going to get better.
Right. And I think that a lot of people might see this on social media or who know you, your friends, and a lot of people love to throw around the overnight success. But I love that you're being so transparent about how long this has actually taken you.
Yeah.
And that is what it takes to be a leader and run a team is just that tenacity, not giving up. And I definitely see that in you. So I love that you're being so transparent about it. And since you're being so transparent with us, why don't you tell us what the hardest part about running a team is that not really a lot of people talk about? We want all the secrets.
You want all the secrets. Okay, so I have a crazy background, right? And obviously we don't have enough time to go into all of it, but with the things that have happened in my past, like horrible stuff, like got sober after I got out of the car business. Now I'm coming up on 19 years of sobriety. My wife and I almost got divorced. We lost everything in '08. I got COVID so bad, I almost died and I was in the hospital for 10 days. Like, you want to talk about eating buckets of shit, okay? Been there, done that, baby. So I figure, okay, if this guy here who barely made it out of high school, by the way, I C minus, okay? I'm probably the dumbest. My wife hates it when I say this. I am the dumbest person on paper. So I'm like, well, if I can do it, I know that person can do it. So I always believe in other people. I always have the belief that little Susie Q and little Jimmy John, whoever that new person is on the team, like I believe in them a ton. The problem is they don't believe in themselves because it's hard. And so I've gone through so much hard stuff that it's second nature. It's like, oh, I failed. Let me get back up within minutes, right? Now, my first failures in life, okay, they hurt. They stung. I was like, "Bleh." It took me months, sometimes a year to get back on my feet. But I think in today's world, the old, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Well, let me tell you, you can't go through life that way. Things are going to be hard. Life is going to be hard. There's going to be hard things that happen. Guess what? You can't stop and not do it. You have to lean into it and keep going. I did this analogy the other day. Sometimes we have to do things that don't feel right. And I'm not talking about doing illegal stuff.
Yeah.
But here's a great analogy. Tonight, when you're brushing your teeth before you go to bed, use the opposite hand you typically brush your teeth with. Okay? It's not going to feel right, but are you still getting the job done? Yes. Okay. Same in sales. Sometimes your leader or someone will say, hey, you need to say it like this, or you need to do this, and they'll paint the picture for you. It doesn't feel right in your stomach, doesn't feel right in your heart, but it's the right thing to do, so they don't do it. That's where the failure comes into play.
You seem to be a good teacher too. Like you would provide some great mentorship because the way that you explain things helps people think about it kind of in a different light, just like your toothbrush analogy. I absolutely
Right.
love that one. So with that said, I know we don't have a ton of time, but I really want to, a lot of leaders, a lot of successful people have these daily habits and routines that help keep them successful in both business and life. So I really kind of want to hear a lot about your routine before we wrap this thing up.
Okay, so back in 2014, I was going through another season, okay, and I was like, it was rough. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with Dave Panozzo? So I started a journal and not, people usually do journals for like, oh, today was great. It was rainbows and unicorns. My first like dozen entries in my journal, I failed again. What's wrong with me? Woke up late again. Pull your head out of your ass. Like these entries were like me being hard on myself because I couldn't get going. Okay. And so what I found was I wasn't being consistent in my personal life. I was trying to have this badass business life, but my personal life was in complete shambles. And so I had to reinvent myself. I had to recreate. And what I found was I wasn't being consistent. So getting up, praying, doing my journaling, affirmations, reading 10 pages out of a positive self-help book, okay? Like those were things that I was not doing that I finally got consistent with. Then once I got consistent with that, then I started getting consistent with my health, okay? And everyone takes their health for granted until something bad happens. And then it's like, oh, I'm not drinking out of plastic bottles anymore or whatever the case, but I'm only eating organic. Well, we take health for granted. So I got super psycho on all of it. Then all of a sudden, that that transcribed into my business life doing really, really well. And so I started to see that there was a balance between both. I don't like to say balance often because everyone's like, oh, the balance of life. There is no balance. But I was being consistent in both aspects, which then showed my bank account.
Sure.
So it all went hand in hand.
Yeah. And what you're doing is you're actually doing the things. A lot of people say that they're going to journal or they think about journaling. They don't actually do it. They don't actually read the books. They don't actually put any of these things in action because your brain doesn't actually think that these are going to change your life.
Right.
Coming from a person who knows from experience, you don't actually believe that these are going to change your life, but they do. And I love that you've put this into practice. And I feel like there's a part two at some point where we really dig deep into that leadership, that mentorship, and those daily habits, because I would love to hear more on that from you. But what I didn't get from you today is a little bit about your clients. What type of clients are you helping and what areas are you serving in Arizona?
We service all of Maricopa County, which is all Phoenix and surrounding areas.
Okay.
Um, Everything from helping buyers, first-time home buyers, to helping people buy a $5 million home. Like we don't segregate at all. We always say we're the people's realtor, right? Um, Both buyers and sellers. And so we've really carved out a really cool niche in our market, especially with my wife being an agent for so long, that right now we're finding a mix of all of it. Okay. There's a lot of people sitting on the sidelines because they have a 3% interest rate, but they have like 400 grand of equity in their house. It's just burning a hole in their pocket. So we're trying to get them off the fence. And then you have your first time home buyers who are just scared to death because mom and dad are telling them the market's going to crash, the interest rates are going to lower, but then prices still keep going up and interest rates still stay the same. So there's a lot of educating and game planning with people. I find that just because someone says they want to buy a house doesn't mean they want to go out that day and look. Like you got to sit them down and go old school. Okay. You got to sit down and say, hey, listen, Tia, this is how we're going to do this. This is the format. This is the time frame. It's at your pace, not mine. If you want to go super fast, I can go super fast. If you want to take the slow road, we can take the slow road and really walk people through what to expect. And that's customer service, for God's sake. Like there is no customer service anymore. You got to think like, you can order something on Amazon, it'll be on your doorstep tomorrow morning. Like people want this stuff fast.
They do.
And I think it's starting to kind of flow into our market, which is crazy because it's a process. You're looking, get pre-qualified. That could take a week. Then you start looking at homes. That could take another couple of weeks. Might not find the right house. Now all of a sudden, you're 3, 4, 5 weeks into it. Then you finally find a house. It goes under contract. Now you're 30 days later. So it could be a 3, 4, 5 month, time frame, and people, both salespeople and the clients, kind of get this decision fatigue because it's not going fast enough, and they pout. It's like, stop it! You don't want to settle. The perfect home's out there for you. You just got to put the time in to find it.
Yeah, and what are the conversations you're having surrounding appreciation? I know the Colorado market pretty well. I'm not super familiar with Arizona, so why don't you give us an idea of kind of the average appreciation you're seeing? Because I know that a lot of people are scared to buy. They want to wait for rates, but in reality, if the appreciation percentage is there, why would you wait? You're almost kind of, shooting yourself in the foot by waiting just based on the investment opportunity alone.
Absolutely. I mean, over the last 2 years, if you were a buyer in the market 2 years ago and you're like, oh, the market, I don't want to buy because of blah, blah, blah. Listen, you'd be up double digits,
Yeah.
okay, in appreciation. Double digits, okay? Not the, and, when I first got my license, I was always conservative. Oh, year after year, it's 3 to 5% appreciation, depending upon which area. Listen, all bets are off. Like, the cost of waiting, okay, if you were to buy a five, $600,000 house, 4 or 5 years ago, you would be up over 100 grand and then some. Okay, we're still seeing those numbers even at our current market. So again, the cost of waiting and the cost of spending money on a rent, you get nothing with rent. You get absolutely nothing. And a lot of people need some equity in their life because it's getting to a point to where, these apartments and some of these single family homes are like, it's crazy the amount that these rents are getting nowadays. And people just need to be educated on what that bigger picture looks like.
Now, are these high rates, are they buying a lot of your customers out of this market, or is that a non-issue for you guys?
I mean, listen, we're in the fight, okay? We are in the fight on a daily basis. And so you really have to break down, like, we'll have conversations with clients like, hey, listen, Tia, if this payment that you got pre-qualified at, if you're gonna have to eat ramen noodles and that's it, maybe this isn't for you. But if you're just scared on the fact of, hey, it's a higher interest rate, the payment's kind of pushing that budget, listen, at the end of the day, the rates will probably adjust over the course of the next 6 to 12, 18 months. Even if it adjusts a half point, a full point, that would make a big difference in your payment, wouldn't it? Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Well, you can refinance later on down the road. But if the rates stay at the current rate for the rest of your life, can you still manage that payment? Well, yeah. And they start to put one and one together, and then it's like, okay, now I get it. You know what? Yeah, let's keep moving forward.
And do you see a lot of locals that that you work with, or are you guys having an influx of out-of-staters recently?
We Well, with Phoenix, we are definitely, I mean, Scottsdale, for God's sake, gets 9 million visitors a year.
Yep.
Okay. Lots of snowbirds. There's still a lot of money on the sidelines. We're seeing a little bit of a mixture of cash deals or people putting half down. Or what's really crazy is like that 1.5 to 2 million range. That's kind of like a payment buyer price range now. Like people are okay with a 9, 10, $12,000 a month payment, which, 5, 10 years ago, $1.5 million, $2 million home, that was typically that was cash, right? Now we're starting to see people finance, which
Okay.
is very interesting to me.
I mean, yeah, just with the national debt, I can only imagine that even our high earners probably have some debt in there. So the financing does make sense from that standpoint, coming from
Right.
someone who used to be in lending. So I kind of understand that, but at the same time, everything's just more expensive now. And on the insurance front, I can even speak to that in Arizona. Typically insurance is a lot cheaper, but the fires in California and all of the things happening are raising everyone's rates, just unanimously. So
Yeah.
it's increasing overall. So I feel that and I hear that, but it's good to hear that there's still a lot of investment opportunity there, second home opportunity, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
I love you've been a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much. If anyone is out there listening and they feel like they want your real estate services or they just want to join your team, how can they get in contact with you?
Couple different ways. You can look me up on Instagram, the Panazzo team. All the spellings will be down in the comments below, or you can reach me at 480 757-1848. That's my that goes straight into my office, and I'll be more than glad to talk to you.
Awesome. Well, part two is coming, so stick around for part two where we go deeper into leadership and mentorship with Dave. And thanks for listening. We will talk to you guys next time.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dave.